All right, so as Faye said, my name is Muideen, and today I'll just be briefly talking about how to ace grad school interview. This again is one of the very crucial aspects of the application process to schools, whether the US, Canada, even Europe. I'm sure that somewhere in between, especially when you need funding, you probably need to undergo this, and you need to actually be able to uh, ace this interview properly for you to be able to get that final offer that you desire, right? So without wasting time, I'll just get right into it. So what's this interview all about? What I've put here is to tell us that this interview is basically an opportunity for you to interact between the program and yourself. It's just a means of interaction between the program and you, right? So you want to get to know what this program is about. The program also, or whoever is behind the program, also wants to know you, right? And know, okay, who is this person we are trying to admit to our program? So that's the first thing. In this meeting, you need to not only answer questions, you should also ask questions. So many people go into this interview with the idea that they're just going there to answer questions. They don't prepare questions for the interviewer. So it's not a one-way street, it's a two-way street. You also need to prepare questions ahead to ask. That also shows that you are really interested in them. And it also gives you much more clarity on what is going on in that program. And I'll be sharing more on that actually as we go in the next few slides. Now, you want to be cheerful yet confident in this kind of interview, uh, sessions. So you don't want to appear like you were not prepared. You also want to put up a smiling face, not like you are in a wildlife, right? But you want to have just that big smile, not too much, not too small. But most importantly, you want to appear very confident. You want to show that you know what you're saying, you know what you're doing, and that you're a very serious-minded person. And the only way you can actually be able to do that is if you actually practice as much as you can. So it's not just enough to land that interview. You need to also prepare it for it. You need to do some practice, some mock, just like the way you would do mock interviews before you go for the visa, the main visa interview, especially for the US. You also need to do a bit of this for your interviews for grad school as well. Now, I put here that you need to know your application package. Again, I'll circle back to what Bola said earlier. You've gone, and if you did put your application together in a way that you did not write many of these documents yourself, then you might run into trouble here, because most of what will be coming up in this interview are things that they see on paper that you submitted, right? So you want to make sure that you know your application package, and by application package, I mean things like your CV, your so your CV, your SOP, what again? I think those are the two major documents that are in your application package that talks about you directly. And you need to be able to show or embody those characters that you have displayed in that your SOP or CV. Lastly, you want to make sure that you use the correct language and terms. So for whatever field you are, there are terms and languages that are in that field that are common to that field. So especially when your interview is with potential investigator or principal investigator rather, you want to make sure that you're using those terms to show that technical know-how in that field that you've claimed to know. So you want to make sure that you don't use non-verbal languages. You want to avoid them as much as possible. Appear very tactful, say the right thing at the right time, and just, be confident overall. Now, what are the possible forms this interview could come? One is that it could come from the admission committee. In this kind of interview, it means that before you get the admission at all, they want to meet you and speak to you. That you might be meeting maybe 2, 3 people in that interview. You might, because a typical admission committee will probably consist of the graduate program coordinator, maybe a couple of professors and what have you. So you want to, in that kind of interview, the people you'll be meeting, you are not likely to just meet one person. You might be meeting two, three, maybe even four people at the same time, and they're trying to make decisions, right? So you want to make sure that you come there with your A game. Now, the other interview is if you're meeting a principal investigator. Some you can call them advisor, you can call them supervisor, whatever. What this just simply means is this is the person that will most likely be funding your education through his research funding. So this is the person you'll be doing research with. This is the person that you want to work in his lab, because whatever program they're trying to get funding for, mostly is usually a research-based program, either it's MSc or PhD, right? So you want to make sure that you're prepared for that as well. Now, last year, we had this kind of, session, and I think the speaker last year did a good job with respect to admission committee kind of interview. So today, my focus isn't going to be on that. I would channel people to go to or drive traffic to our YouTube channel and tell people to go there. Just look for it. I think Bola is going to drop the link or something later. Go there. You can look for that video. It's just about 20 minutes short. I also went there and, viewed it before coming to this event. So go there, look at it. I think it'll be really helpful. It also gives you a very big, broad perspective into interview with admission committee directly. But my own personal experience was an interview with a PI, and that's what I'll be focusing on today. Now, when you do this interview, what is going to go on there? The interview is going to go in two ways. It's either they are looking to just confirm your research experience or your skill, or they want to just ask some general, broad questions about your person. Because some, away from the technical skill, they are also concerned about who is this person that I want to come into my lab or I want to bring into my lab. Will this guy come and scatter my lab? Or is it going to be, a team player, somebody that can work with every other person and, be able to deliver good results? So they are concerned about all of that. So it's not just the technical skill only, who you are too matters. So today I'll just be focusing majorly on that. Now, when you have an interview with a PI, what is going to be happening here? Basically, some PI, they request a short presentation, which is, again, my own personal experience. But when I had my own interview, I sent a cold email like a couple of weeks before. He had an advert out. I sent a cold email. He responded, and he said, "Oh, okay, come, let's meet, and you can prepare a presentation on your latest research, or you could go read one of my papers and just come and tell me what you understand from the paper," right? So in that kind of interview, you know that interview is going to be very, very, very focused on your technical skill in that field. So whatever you've told the professor in your email, oh, I can do this, I can move mountain, I can do all this. You need to now go and show him how you have done it before and how you think you could do it again. Right. So that's what that interview is going to be about. And what you want to do is, aside from preparing that presentation, understanding, going over the presentation, practicing, and just looking at where questions could come in from. Because when you prepare a presentation, you could most likely tell where your questions will come from. So you want to prepare beforehand as well for those. Now, another thing you want to do is to familiarize yourself with one or two publications, especially if you mention them in your cold email. Right? So if there are publications you've mentioned in your cold email from the professor, you want to make sure you go over them as well, especially if he did not tell you to prepare any presentation or what have you. Those can be your point of discussion during the interview process, and it could help you to win him over. So now, what are the possible questions you could get from a PI? Aside from you've presented your technical work or whatever, there are some other questions that could come up, like, why do you think this lab slot or this research is a fit for you? So in this case, you want to just show how your previous experience or current experience matches with what is going on in that lab. All right. So you want to be able to marry your previous or current experience properly with what is happening in the lab or the professor or what you intend to do with him. So that's what this question is trying to, what it's trying to find out with this kind of question. So you want to be able to do that good marriage between those two things in that when you get that kind of question. Another one could be, why are you considering a PhD or MSc? So this is just trying to find out the motivation behind your intention to come and study, come for postgraduate study. So it just wants to be sure that you are motivated enough. You're not doing it as a means to, in Nigerian language, japa. So he wants to know that, okay, this guy really means business, is dedicated, is committed, and is motivated about what he's coming to do in whatever country he's trying to go to. Now, they also want to probably know what you currently do. So are you in the industry or are you doing research-related stuff? You can also give them more perspective onto who you are as a person. So you want to prepare for questions like that. What is your future goal? So after this study, what are you trying to do? Do you want to end up as a professor as well? Or you want to just be in the academia? Or you want to go into the industry? What kind of future do you see for yourself? That can also guide them to know what you are or what is going on in your own head. Now, they could also be interested in your strength or weakness. Now, I mean, everybody can say, oh, I'm good at this, I'm good at that. But when it comes to the weakness, the tactful or the political way of answering that question is not to say that nobody is perfect, right? I mean, you always, even those that are interviewing you also have some weakness. All you just need to do in this kind of situation is you can mention whatever you think you are struggling with, and ensure that you now back it up with somewhat of I won't say a solution, but effort you are making to correct that weakness, right? So maybe your weakness is you are late on deadlines or you are bad with deadlines. You could now talk about it and say, oh, but what I'm doing now is, I'm now taking advantage of technology, being able to schedule things, have reminders set from time to time for every task I have so that I make sure that I stay on top of things, things like that. So those are the ways that you can structure question on weakness, especially so that you don't sell yourself short, yet you still show that truly I have some weakness, but I'm making conscious efforts to actually correct those weaknesses. But they may also want to know about your hobbies or interests, right? Because all of this, they say all work and no play make Jack a dull boy. So away from being a researcher, what do you do aside that? So those are some things that could also come up in your discussion or in an interview. So you want to make sure that you have all of that handy to discuss, right? And I mean, you don't need to feel shy if what you enjoy is watching soccer or playing soccer or what have you. Be open about discussing it, right? So that's another thing to look out for. Now, remember I said at the beginning that it's not just for them to ask you questions, you also need to have some questions for them. And what are the kind of questions you could actually ask? So one of it could be, are there publication requirements before graduation? So some labs, for instance, in my lab, before I came in, I had to sign an, kind of, will I say an undertaking or like some kind of agreement that I was going to have 2 publications before graduating. Yeah, maximum of 2, right? So meaning that if you don't ask that kind of question before and then you don't know, then it means there are expectations from you that you're not aware of. So those are the kind of questions you want to ask. And I'm doing an MSc, right? Maybe a PhD might be more. I don't know. So you want to make sure you ask that kind of question. What is the average completion time for the program/lab? Because there are some PIs that are really like, they demand a lot of stuff from students, and you do this, you do A, then they say, oh, add B. And before you know, they say add C. And then you just see that your time is running out. You're supposed to complete this program in 2 years. Now it's now becoming 2.5 years, going to 3 years, right? So you want to be able to get a sense of what all the students that have passed out from this lab, How long did it take them to actually finish their program? Did it take them the expected time? Was it over? Maybe a possible reason why it was over and all of that. You want to probably get a sense of that as well as someone that is trying to get into that lab. Now you want to know what are the current projects ongoing in that lab. So you send that email, oh, this guy is doing stuff on cancer, for instance. But he does cancer, he does diabetes, he does, I don't know, HIV research. At the moment, it might be that what he's focusing on is just the diabetes aspect. Yes, you've seen his profile, he has all of that there, but it could be he's probably focused on only diabetes-related research at the moment. And maybe that's not what you're interested in. But you want to make sure you confirm what are the current projects, which one are likely, or which one of it is likely to be a good fit for you eventually. So you want to ask that kind of question as well. And then you want to know what is the general expectation
TJ, we
of
have
the
about 3 minutes left. Sorry.
Yeah, this is pretty much like my last slide. So this is kind of like linked back to idea publication requirements because this is kind of like an expectation as well. So you just want to get a sense of what are the expectations. You're supposed to be meeting him every day, every week, once a week. What have you? Those are some kind of uh things you want to get a sense of really during those interviews. And then lastly, you want to ask things about internship opportunities, right? So during the summer, are you allowed to, is there opportunity for you to actually go out of school and actually have an internship outside school? You want to clarify that sometimes during all of these interviews, because if your interest is to probably join the industry after your education, then you want to probably get some industry experience while still in school. And the PI has a saying that because if it's not giving you the opportunity to do that over the summer, then when do you get the opportunity to do it? So you might want to ask, those are questions you might really want to ask there. That's what I have here. And just on a final note, one thing you should know is that they will judge you based off this interview because that's the only way they get to know who you are. So you want to make sure you bring your A game. You may ace the interview, but not get selected eventually. I mean, you can do everything right, but at the end of the day, you don't still get selected. Do not feel bad. Rejection is part of the process. So all you need to do is, and that's just because, as Bola said too, competition is very fierce. There's very limited space in all of these labs that are going to get. So what you need to do is basically go back to the drawing board, put everything in your shots, and eventually God will listen to your cry and answer your prayers. So thank you for listening.
Moyo, please mute yourself. Oh, Daniel, please help me mute Moyo. Sorry, thank you. Thank you so much, Muhyiddin, TJ. Thank you for giving us this amazing presentation. So because you have 2 minutes left, TJ, I'm going to ask a quick question, which is research experience the same as final year thesis? That's what someone wants to know. Is research the same
For
as
sure,
final year?
you can qualify. You just need to know how you would play with the words when you put it in your CV, right? So you don't just want to make it sound loose. You want to package it in quotes in a way that it sounds like you really did something. You want to show that you did some literature review, you designed something, or you did some data analysis. I don't know, whatever is in your field, but generally just yes, for sure, it does. I can say yes, it does, because that's what I capitalized on when I did my own interview, when I was sending my cold emails all over the place. It was my final year project I capitalized on as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much, TJ, for that. And I think this is also for anyone who is still in undergrad right now, or you're doing your master's right now. Please, Daniel, please mute these people. Thank you. Make sure that you're doing your thesis well, because you will need to call on that thesis in the future. So you might as well give it your A game. Thank you so much, TJ. If you please stop sharing your screen. I'm ready to get our next speaker up, which is